After nearly 20 years of war and over 100,000 dead, Afghanistan is once more in the grip of the Taliban. Just weeks before the fall of Kabul, I was there to see a country bracing itself for the withdrawal of US forces.
Every morning that I wake up, I worry that we might lose another colleague.
I met Taliban leaders who claim they've changed.
There was in the past some mistakes that we have learned from.
But with the future of millions of Afghans at stake and concerns about global security, can we believe them?
They have become savvier in deceiving.
I was born in Afghanistan and have been reporting from the region for more than a decade. I returned to the capital, Kabul, in June this year, just 2 months before the country fell to the Taliban. After nearly 20 years out of power, they were gradually gaining territory. My first stop was to see an old friend, the photojournalist Masoud Hosseini. Already he was living in hiding, barely leaving his house.
I'm staying here actually. Okay. Here, just to show you, is all I have left. Here is my bed. That is, I made it as a kitchen, right? And that's it for now.
That's your life?
Yeah. All the time here, all the time.
Masoud's parents fled Afghanistan when he was a small child. 20 years ago, the Taliban were running the country with an extreme version of strict Islamist law. After the 9/11 attacks, America blamed the Taliban for sheltering Al-Qaeda. A US-led coalition with thousands of British troops invaded Afghanistan and drove the Taliban out. Within months, Masoud returned to take part in the rebuilding of a nation.
One of my favorite pictures when I came to Afghanistan. This is the morning of the second day that I arrived in Kabul. And this picture gave me a lot of hope. I thought that we are going to be a normal country, a normal society. Our girls can do this. They can come to the cultural event like this.
But the Taliban never went away, and the violence continued. Masoud took this photo of a suicide bombing in 2011 when UK and US forces in Afghanistan were at their peak.
It still is too much painful for me.
The year Masoud took that picture, President Barack Obama started the withdrawal of American troops from the country. Over the next few years, the Taliban gained in strength. Attacks against civilians became more common. In many cases, the Taliban were responsible. In 2018, Masoud narrowly avoided 2 assassination attempts. In the first, his car was riddled with bullets. In the second, a suicide bomber had targeted a group of journalists.
I was clicking, right, my camera. The explosion happened from left to right in my viewer of the camera, in my frame.
Masoud lost 9 of his friends and colleagues in the blast.
That attack was completely and exactly were against journalists. The only chance and luck that I had, I was 10 meters away. That's it. Otherwise, we all were being killed there.
Seeing Masoud confined to 4 walls was a disturbing sign of the growing fear amidst the Taliban resurgence. Before retaking the country, the Taliban, along with other jihadi groups, were staging ever more brazen attacks. By 2020, many here were living in constant fear.
We saw an increase in targeted killings. religious scholars, journalists, human rights defenders. These people are not engaged in war. They were working for peace, and they are being targeted, and they are being killed.
Shahrazad Akbar is the chairperson of the Afghan Independent Human Rights Commission, which investigates human rights abuses in Afghanistan. Last summer, a bomb attack killed 2 of her colleagues, Fatima Khalil and Jawed Foulad.
They were on the way to work. An explosive blew up and, well, killed them both. Not instantly, I believe, but
I wonder, when you leave home every day, every morning, you say goodbye to your child, do you think I may not come back?
I think everyone in the field that I work in does that. It's not just me, my colleagues as well. And every morning when they leave the home, they don't know if they'll be back. It's the same for me. When I leave in the morning, I don't know if I'll be back. Since I have become a mom, there's this doubt, you know. Do I have the right to do this?
Before the Taliban retook the country, it seemed they were using these attacks to stoke fear and crush the morale of the population. Fatima and Jawed were 2 of over 700 people assassinated in targeted killings last year.
Every time we are stuck in traffic, there's a certain worry. It's so tense here, everything is on edge, that maybe the car in front of you might explode next to you, or there might be some kind of targeted killing. It is an absolutely precarious and uncertain situation.
The government was clearly struggling to maintain control. I approached Vice President Amrullah Saleh, a man with a long and personal history with the Taliban. He fought them directly in the 90s and became intelligence chief in the early 2000s.
Let me show you some of the pictures of my kids. When I was an intelligence chief, so I used to take them with me.
To the office, yeah.
This is the picture of my son.
Who was in the car with you?
This one.
This one.
He was in the car. And I said, son, I'm glad you are alive, and I'm glad you were with me, because this is patriotism earned in hard way.
1 year ago, the vice president and his son narrowly avoided an attempt on his life after his convoy was struck by a roadside bomb. Not long after this attack, Mr. Saleh set up daily security briefings.
If you want, you can join me.
Yes, that would be great.
He gave us rare access to attend.
I mean, if you think about Kabul city, I've come back after several years. People are saying to me they can't leave their house at night. Women don't feel safe, people don't feel safe. There's different militia groups in the city. I mean, how has it been so?
Well, we have foiled 850 attacks in 200 days. With those which have gone off, yes, failures. But 850 have been stopped. Who is my chief of staff?
Nice meeting you.
با عرض سلام خدمت تمام همکاران اجندا چیز رئیس
تیم اردوی تحقیل اردوی میلی خونسا شد در معاصر و دستگاه انفجار بعد از خونسا سازی یک عملیات داریم، یک دستگیری
یادداشت بگیرید مکافات شما در نظر
ولایتی در معاصر مستقل است.
از اعترافات چی داره؟ یا اعترافات کن یکی شامله که بچه جوان افتاده شده که من طالبا از من برمزوری استفاده کردن کلمه لواطت کردن همونطور امیر گفتم؟
بله در اعترافات است.
گفته بودم شما مطمئن هستید که من اینجا خبر می‌کنم که باز بگویمشم که ببینن
چیزی سال کدن بو اطرافا کشل معمول کمزار کنه
بسیار من آخر باید مهربانی
These security briefings were taking place against a backdrop of increasing uncertainty. Last year, the US and the Taliban had signed a peace deal agreeing a prisoner swap.
Do you regret releasing the prisoners?
Big time. Very big mistake. But we did not want to lose the goodwill of our allies. We knew it was not going to work. And we calculated all the risks. We said it's not going to work, but we don't want to be labeled as the obstacle. So here they are.
It was agreed that American troops would be withdrawn by summer 2021.
It's time to end America's longest war. It's time for American troops to come home.
America's withdrawal was a landmark moment. After the prisoner swap, peace talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban took place in Doha, the capital of Qatar. But despite lengthy negotiations, there was no real progress. In June, I traveled to Doha to meet a member of the Taliban negotiating team. Before 9/11, Sohail Shaheen was the Taliban's representative to the United Nations, living in New York.
I liked the development, the technologies, the cities, the buildings, and also the sense of research and hard work in the American people, and also the media.
So you could see a partnership with them?
Yes, sure, because I wanted and still want those things to happen to my people, to my country. So I think they could be good partners.
It was hard to reconcile his words with the previous actions of the Taliban. When they were last in power, they ruled with fear, staging public executions and enforcing punishments such as cutting off the hands of convicted thieves. Girls were denied an education, and women were made to wear the burqa. They could rarely leave the house without a chaperone and were denied the right to work.
Would you have a religious police that would monitor people's behavior?
There will be, but there will be difference. They should have a good conduct with the people. And also there will be another department of complaints and grievances to monitor not only the people, but the police themselves. Our goals are very clear. We want to end this phase of occupation and bring about another government which is acceptable by the people of Afghanistan.
Would it be unacceptable to see a public execution in Kabul today?
As Muslim, that would be acceptable, not only for me, and also for you as a Muslim. And about stoning, according to my knowledge, though I'm not a religious scholar, it is very difficult to find proof to stone a woman. If it is not impossible, but it is very, very difficult.
Many people say that the Taliban have militarily become so strong, therefore emboldened, and therefore will try and take power by force. What do you say to that?
We do not want that to have a monopoly. We want participation of all Afghans, because only in that case we would have a permanent, comprehensive peace.
If you were to return to Kabul, how would you govern?
There was in the past some mistakes that we have learned from because at that time you were new to the government. To stop education of women and girls, that is not our goal. Of course, education is their right, and it is much needed. And when they receive education, they, of course, they have a right to work.
Suhail Shaheen was promising a peaceful Afghanistan and a Taliban that had changed. But back in Kabul, I was about to meet another Taliban leader.
بله؟ بله سلام. خوب تشکر.
بله خوب هستین. همون نفرم آماده است. بعد از ساعت 6 بجه بتین گپ بزنین. نفرم آماده است.
بسیار خوب. تشکر بسیار زیاد.
تشکر.
تشکر. خداحافظ. That was just a contact who's been communicating with a Taliban commander from Helmand, and we're hoping to meet him. And I've just heard that he's ready to speak. Not in Helmand, though, here in Kabul. I mean, what's surprising about all of this is quite a well-known commander can make his way from Helmand to the capital and feel quite comfortable being here. It makes you realize just how much they've infiltrated the city.
The commander I was meeting had been released as part of the prisoner swap that took place last summer, in the hope it would pave the way for peace talks.
It's very hot. Does he want water? Let's go back. Do you want the Taliban regime to come back into power?
Afghanistan ki da shari'i nizam laka mkhki che Taliban nizam wo khair paga ki khubum na khwali we zaka jangi halat wo.
If we talk about law and order and justice, if someone were to steal or commit adultery, what should happen to them?
Da harca Quran ki wazi di. Ka څوک غلا وکړي د هغه دپاره هم سزا شته. داسې غلاګانې شته چې باید لاس پښه یې قطع شي. او که څوک مثلا زنا وکړي هغه باید سنګسار شي.
What about girls going to school? Can girls go to school, and up until which age?
هغه نجلۍ وي او ولاړه دي شي. خو باید ښوونځی یې بېل وي. د هغه کومې ښوونکي چې دي باید زنانه وي. هغه هم تر 12 کالو 13 کالو پورې باید مکتب ووایي.
But in your district and in the villages that you live and fight, do girls go to school? And if so, until what age?
زموږ په کلي ولسوالۍ کې بیخي یوه نجلۍ ښوونځي ته هم نه ده تللې ځکه چې زموږ منطقه چې ته ډېره لرې پرته سیمه ده. نه دا زمینه ورته مساعده ده او نه هم څوک پرېږدي.
And if there isn't a political resolution to this conflict, are you prepared to take Kabul by force?
زه کوشش کوم چې دولت ته شکست ورکړم. دولت کوشش کوي چې ما ورک کړي. اخر خو دې ته مجبور یو چې یو بل به تر هغه وخته وژنو.
Commander Maulana was adamant the Taliban would only stop fighting when a strict form of Sharia law was imposed across the whole country. After this interview, he headed back to the front lines. The next month, his province Helmand would fall entirely to the Taliban. I'd heard two different views of what the Taliban wanted. I went back to the presidential palace to ask if the vice president thought it was time for the Taliban to return to Kabul.
Absolutely, tomorrow, but not with their guns and IEDs and suicide bombers. As normal individuals, if they want to humanely come and interact with the rest of the Afghans, run for office, why not? But if they come to dictate, you know, the size of people's beard and their lifestyle, what they cook in their kitchen, or what time they wake up, that's not going to happen. No.
They said to me that they want to come into a position where they can power share with fellow Muslims.
This group in Doha, they are a deceptive facade of a very dark reality called the Taliban.
So in your view, have they changed?
No, not only they have not changed, they believe that their stagnation has brought them a strength. They have become savvier in deceiving. But the reality has not changed.
Are you willing to pick up arms again if you have to?
I am already armed against them.
You've got the whole army. But I mean, if you really had to go head to head,
Yes.
if Kabul fell.
Yes. No way. There's no way I can surrender to the Taliban. None. No way.
For years, US and British soldiers have been training Afghan troops to defend themselves against the Taliban. There are over 180,000 government forces preparing to fend off 75,000 Taliban troops. But despite this, US intelligence knew they'd fail and Kabul would fall within months. I went to an army base outside Kabul to meet some of their newest recruits.
One of the most dangerous jobs to have in Afghanistan today is to be part of the Afghan army at such a turbulent time when foreign forces are leaving the country.
By June, the Taliban had made significant advances. It was clear that the Afghan army had limited time to prepare for the fight ahead. Hamdullah was 18 and about to finish training.
بسن شما دیگه کسا که می باشه فاکولته میرن درس خود شاید خوانده زیادتر درس بخوانن یا در دیگه کشور برن کاری که شما میکنین بسیار خطر دارد و کل کشور دنیا سیل هستن شما چی فکر میکنین درباره از این مسئله؟
به این خاطر این افغانستان رسیدم به این خاطر ما خود میخوایم که از پانتون فارغ باشیم از کامپیوتر فارغ باشیم زبان انگلیسی باید یاد داشته باشیم هر زبان باید یاد داشته باشیم لیکن متاسفانه ما نمیتونیم که یاد بگیریم به این خاطر که ملکم بسیار نارام است یک نفر صحیح زندگی کده نمیتونه به این خاطر روز است ما میخوایم که یک سربازی واقعی شویم که در ملکم آرامی شوه اگه ما چیز پانتون خواندم اگه نخواند نسل دیگه بچه که اصلی زگک بچه که کلان میشه او خو یک زمینه برابر شوه
The hopes that people had for someone like him, that 20 years on or 18 years on, this would be a very different nation. To think that they've gone back to square one is what's most disturbing about all of this.
Protecting Afghanistan from the Taliban has come at an enormous cost. 6,000 Americans and 457 British soldiers have died during 20 years of war, as have almost 70,000 Afghan soldiers and police and nearly 50,000 Afghan civilians. The people I met in Kabul all told me that they did not want to surrender the rights and opportunities that the last 20 years had brought them. None wanted to leave Afghanistan. I wanted to see Masood one last time before I left Kabul. He was on a rare outing to take photographs at a popular Kabul hilltop.
There is no certainty at all. Nothing, actually. And everybody is on the air now. They don't know what to do.
But these are just, scenes of families with their children. They've just come to have a nice time.
Yeah, well, they are living for sure, right? But I'm sure that if you ask the person that what is your plan B if something happens, he will say, oh, I'm going to Pakistan or to Iran. So they already have their plan B. So here is just a temporary place to live. even for its own citizen.
Just 2 months after I met Masood, his predictions of an exodus became a reality. With only a handful of troops remaining, provincial cities started to fall to the Taliban with barely a shot fired. The advance came at staggering speed. Afghan forces melted away and the capital fell without a fight. The Taliban were back in charge. Thousands of Afghans fled to Kabul airport, desperate to escape the country. Others hid in their homes.
We gave them every chance to determine their own future. What we could not provide them was the will to fight for that future.
Western politicians scrambled to make sense of the chaos.
Mr. Speaker, I think it would be fair to say that the events in Afghanistan have unfolded and the collapse has been faster than I think even the Taliban themselves predicted. What is not true is to say that the UK government was unprepared or did not foresee this.
After 20 years trying to rebuild the country, had it all been for nothing?
The feeling of abandonment of not just a country, but the sacrifice that my friends made.
My friend Masood managed to board one of the last commercial flights out. Sohail Shaheen has continued to defend the ideology of the new Taliban, making a call to me live on air.
So we're just going to see if we can put you on speaker. Can our viewers hear that?
We assure the people that their properties, their lives are safe.
But will the Taliban stick to their word? Or could there be a return to the darkest days of public executions and the extreme suppression of women's rights? Vice President Saleh remains in Afghanistan and is attempting to rally together a resistance against the Taliban. Back in London, I got a voice message from him at his new base in the Panjshir Valley, 90 miles from Kabul.
If the president absent or he resign, the first vice president automatically becomes the legitimate caretaker president. I am not ready to be part of the humiliation and shame that the foreign militaries have endured. I am standing for my country and the war is not over.
Those who fight on do it this time without the help of the West. And for now, the question is not if, but how the Taliban will rule the country.
Investigating China's magic weapon for infiltrating Western institutions tonight at 9 on BBC Two.